as we read the memorandum which is given, who takes the decisions? We have seen the joint secretary signing on the official memorandum which was issued on August 1990. So on 13th of August 1990, a memorandum was issued stating that 27% of reservations have to be allotted for the socially and economically backward classes, so caste people in the reservations or in the postings of India. No, do you think the person who is undersigning that one will have the whole and sole authority to take such a great or large decision? Obviously no. It was just the order signed by the personnel. He is just a bureaucrat who is implementing the decision taken by the political executive above him. When I mentioned the word political executive, that is the ministry. We already read that the joint secretary is a ministry of personal, pensions and the public grievances ministry department's joint secretary has signed the official memorandum. The orders are given to the joint secretary to issue such an order by the minister of public, personal and the pensions ministry. So now it is a political decision which was taken, which was given implementations by the bureaucrat whose duty is to implement the laws which are made by the legislative. Once the decision is taken and the orders are issued, but who really takes the decisions? Does only the minister takes the decisions? No. We already have seen in the previous lesson that the elections are conducted for the Lok Sabha. In the Lok Sabha we have, in the parliament we have Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. The party which gains more than half number of seats can form the government. That is, the Prime Minister will be elected from the ruling party and the Prime Minister is the head of the government. Many of us do get confused with the word who is the head of the nation. The head of the country is always the president. The formal authority as a head of the country rests with the president, but the real head of the government is the Prime Minister. From where does the Prime Minister gets his source of energy or his support? From the parliament. In the parliament, specifically from Lok Sabha. So before a decision is taken by the joint secretary to implement the 27% of reservation of the jobs in the Indian recruitments, it was first thoroughly discussed in the Lok Sabha, then it is been approved by the Prime Minister who is the head of the government and formally went to the notice of the President. After his issue only, after he confirms that yes, this can be done, then only the secretary can issue these orders. That's how it happened. So it was not an event which took on the day of 13th August 1990. It was the culmination of many series of events which happened prior to this. It is actually started its journey on 1979. The government has set up a commission called Mandal Commission popularly. This is actually the second backward classes commission. In order to uplift the backward community people, what are the necessary steps that has to be taken to upgrade this particular community people was the main objective of this commission, and the main member or the chairman of this commission is BP Mandal. That's the reason why it is popularly known as Mandal Commission. After thoroughly studying the cases and the conditions of the socially and the economically backward classes people, the commission has recommended certain recommendations. The major recommendation among that was allotting or giving 27% of reservations for the socially and economically backward classes people. This was given in 1980s. So what happened after that? Because we have seen the memorandum coming in 1990. So in 1979 the commission was set up. The memorandum came official in 1990. Why it took such a long time? Let's find out. Now, as we discussed earlier, that the date of 13th August 1990 when the GO was issued stating that 27% of reservations has to be given to the OBC category people or the socially and the economically backward classes. It was a culmination of a series of activities which started with the appointment of the second class Mandal Commission, which is headed by BP Mandal. So it's popularly known as Mandal Commission. The Mandal Commission recommended certain amount of reservations like nearly 27% to uplift the socially and the economically backward classes people who are suffering in our society from many years. So it was a time for many years the parliamentarians used to discuss about this one, used to say that we would like to implement this one, we would like to implement the Mandal Commission's recommendations and all. It finally in 1989 when the Lok Sabha elections have come out, it was in the elections manifesto of the Janata Dal party mentioned that if we come to power, if we win the elections, we will definitely implement the Mandal Commission report or the recommendations, and we will make sure those are implemented meticulously. So in that elections, the Janata party won the elections, the Janata Dal party won the elections with a huge majority, and the leader of the Janata Dal, Mr. VP Singh, became the then Prime Minister of the country. So once he became the head of the ruling party in the Lok Sabha with majority of seats, he got the opportunity to form the government. So after forming the government, we have an official addressal of the President on the common minimum program which the government would like to plan in the next 5 years. For every government, before it takes its original office into power or before it starts its official duty, the President would briefly give details about what are the things or the programs that the government has planned to do in these next 5 years. So in his addressal, the President clearly mentioned the intention that the government is likely to implement the 27% of the Mandal Commission's reports. So it's very clear. Election manifesto mentioned that we are going to implement the Mandal Commission recommendations. Later, after coming to power, they did not forego that one. They remembered the promise made to the people. They gave in the common minimum program in addressing the President, addressing the parliamentarians. Then the next day, on 6th of August 1990, the Union Cabinet had a meeting, and in that meeting they decided that they would go ahead with the recommendations of the Mandal Commission, that is 27% of reservations given to the OBC candidates, and this was informed in the houses in the Lok Sabha as well as in the Rajya Sabha. We all know that any bill, in order to become an act, it has to be introduced in Lok Sabha, gets the approval of Lok Sabha, and also the getting the approval of Rajya Sabha. Both are mandatory. Only for the financial bills, the bills can be introduced only in Lok Sabha, and without the consent of the Rajya Sabha also we can pass the bills. So the bill was introduced in both the houses, got the approval of both the houses, and then the decision of the cabinet has been informed to the particular ministry that this action has to be taken, which has been a part and parcel of the plan of the government. So once the cabinet decision is informed to the ministry, the senior most personnel of the ministry, that is the joint secretary of the Ministry of Public Personnel and the Pensions Department, has issued an order stating that on 13th of August 1990 that 27% of reservations will be done or should be implemented in all the government recruitments all across the India. So this GO has been a very hot debate for many months after this GO has been passed. Many of them argued that this kind of reservations are very much necessary because in India we have the society which has been bifurcated on the basis of caste, where many of the castes are socially and economically completely downtrodden, backward, they never have their choice or chance to compete with the other caste people. So this would give an opportunity for those people to raise up their standard of living and also get their natural share in the government job opportunities, and also would give their voices to the other people also. So their voices also can be heard. Well, we on the other hand, we also got the voices against this one, saying that if this kind of reservations are given for the SC candidates, for the ST candidates and for the OBC candidates, like that if we go on dividing and giving it, finally it has become a very difficult task for the people to compete for the jobs, and this restricts the people to compete in that number of jobs which are reserved for the other candidates. So now getting a job has become a far dream for many other caste people, and this kind of reservations will bring division in the society on the basis of the castes, for which we are dreaming that there should be a society where there is no caste division, but we are directly dividing the society on the basis of different castes for the sake of reservations. Now when this kind of divisions are occurring, which is hammering the unity of India. India is a country where millions of people stay together harmoniously. So when these kind of reservations are announced on the names of the castes, that will definitely hammer the unity of our country. That's the voices when the GO was issued on one side and the other side. For every decision, we have two sides. One the pro side, one the against side. In this chapter, we shall not be discussing about whether the decision is good or bad or required of the hour or not. We are just concentrating on how the procedure will be followed in order to take a decision. A GO can be passed only after a certain procedure happens. And now we shall discuss who will solve the dispute which has been raised because of the GO on 13th of August 1990. We will find out. As there was a serious dispute between the pro people towards the GO and also the against people towards the GO. Now, we always knew that when there is any controversy or any dispute arising with the decision of the government, we can appeal to the respective state high court or to the Supreme Court. As this GO was issued by the Union Minister, so we have to appeal to the Supreme Court of India, none other than any other high court. So the members went to Supreme Court making an appeal that this particular GO has to be declared as void and to be cancelled. So the some of the members who went are all together brought under a single umbrella known as Indira, Sohne and others versus the Union government, especially on the issue of declaration of the GO, which states 27% of seats reserved for the other backward classes people in the government jobs recruitment. So when this was passed, many of them went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court addressed this issue with 11 members forming as a bench, the 11 judges forming as a bench in the Supreme Court, heard all the views expressed by all the opponents and the government's views, meticulously studied in detail what are the positives, what are the negatives of the GO which has been issued and what would be the impact of this one. Later, the court has declared that the decision taken by the union government is right and the objections raised against this are null and void. At the same time, the court has redirected the government to change its order, stating that the reservations have to be implemented only those people who are actually in need. They also made it very clear that these reservations cannot be implemented to the well-to-do classes in the backward classes. It is not compulsory that all the people, those who belong to the backward classes, should get these reservations. only those who are economically backward, only those people are eligible to claim these reservations. On basing on the recommendations made by the Supreme Court, the Ministry of the Pensions, Public Grievances and Personnel has modified its order and gave a new GO on 8th of September 1993. So from then onwards, this GO has been followed and the problem has been solved. So the GO, when it has to be, a decision has to be taken, first it has to be discussed, introduced in the Lok Sabha, get the support of Lok Sabha, then in Rajya Sabha. After Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha approves them, then the Union Cabinet, which already has taken a decision to implement certain policies, would inform to the concerned ministry under which purview the department falls to them to issue an order that these particular decisions have been taken, which will be taken or implemented from so and so date. So either the Prime Minister alone, the President alone, or the Joint Secretary alone, the Ministry of the so and so department alone cannot take any decision. Altogether, it is a collective responsibility in the Parliament. President, Prime Minister are definitely heads of the country and heads of the governments respectively. But at the same time, these all are answerable in the Parliament. So Parliament is supreme. Any decision has to be getting the approval of Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha. Then only that can become an order issued by the so and so ministry. This is how the decisions are taken in the houses or in the Indian Parliament, how a bill becomes an act.
If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our channel to get more videos on CBSE syllabus.